Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. So, I'm back again with another Tower of God video, and we're doing another walk up, and this time it's from 61 up to 70. So, let's go into the tower again, and let's continue from 61. We kick off with Yuri and Evan's team, and basically, Yuri asks Evan, in order to get to the area, you have to jump down from here. And basically he says this is the only way to get into the testing spot without getting caught. So after a few minutes, Yuri just kicks Evan down, and everybody else just follows through because that's the way that Yuri is. And we then get back to the test. We see Hutz following the Barnacle goblins or the thieves, and he sees that they're getting busy. So he says that then he detects a presence. And then we see Shibisu saying that he was nervous and that nothing really is happening. And Shibisu and Kun have a little bit of a conversation. And they ask each other if they... Kun asks Shibisu if he knew that Kun was acting when he said he wasn't going to follow Bam. And Kun says it was a bit obvious from the beginning, and basically he explains that Shibisu could have told Anak that it wasn't, and that Anak would have turned on him and not come in with it. And then we get Serena or Miss Lennon's reason for why she didn't like Bam a lot, and the reason was Bam hasn't lost anything, and he had so much of power and his talent is so crazy, it makes people really jealous. And we see that Shibisu does envy Bam as well. We get a little bit of a heart-to-heart, and then all of a sudden we see him says, "Light, what's wrong?" It moved. And then we see the bull attacking Shibisu. We see that he starts panicking and freaking out, and he sees that there's one more Gobi dolphin about to enter the water, and he sees that the bull is following it. If the bull follows the Gobi dolphin, it's over because it'll get into the water and eat everything. And then Shibisu goes and he hits the bull, and basically he starts aggravating it to try and get it to attack him instead of going after the fish. At which point the bull tries to eat him, and he keeps evading it with just the slightest chance. And he tries to hit it, and he doesn't even get away. He hits it in the gonads, and that fails. And as he's about to be beaten down, Anak intervenes, hitting the bull. And basically she gives some quick remarks, and then we see Enderossi enters, and she says if the bull is really hungry, so not angry, it should eat Anak, and Anak calls Enderossi witch, and the two have their little fight, and they're fighting about the fact that Enderossi always wears makeup, and what is it, a face shield or something. And then we get this little funny bit where the bull is chewing on Shibisu's head while the two of them fight. And that's the end of 61, so let's head on to 62. Now, I hope that you understand one thing about all this craziness. There is a reason why we're going through it piece by piece. The reason is, if you go through all of these floors one by one, there's even more to pull out of it. If I were reading the chapter and then elaborating on what I can see and what I understand from the pictures, there's a lot more to explain. So we get this whole thing about before the hunt began, and the whole ecosystem is in perfect balance. Around the fish in the hole, the Gobi dolphin, dogs, thieves, and the predator-prey relationship. So yeah, we get that whole idea. And the fact that the Gobi Queen can create Gobi dolphins all the time is perfectly fine. the barnacle goblins taking the fish from the gobby dolphins doesn't hurt them, and even if they don't get it, it doesn't hurt them. The dogs eating the dolphins doesn't affect it either, and the thieves and the dogs fighting each other, or the earth pigs fighting each other, still doesn't affect each other. So if you interfere with it, it doesn't make any difference, because the balance is always achieved the next time. Because when the barnacle goblins get in, they can hunt more easily. When the earth pigs get in, since we know that the secret is they have underground tunnels, they keep collapsing tunnels all the time as they run through, because the same tunnels are used to interfere with the gobby dolphins. So yeah, that's the whole thing, right? So everything was explained, and so then we get the whole hint of why the scouts are watching the thieves, why Shibisu watched the dolphins to make sure that they got in the water. All of this is actually to protect the gobby dolphins from being eaten too heavily from the earth pigs, and also to prevent the worms that the barnacle goblins have from eating Balm. So they've planned out their own plan. They want to keep their own balance. They're going to use the earth pigs to fight the wetworms so that they don't have to fight one side all on their own. Make an enemy of an enemy your friend, right? Basically, they use them together to work with each other. If the two had to team up and chase them around, it's still safer because they're going to pass the test. Plus, they have wave controllers so they can change the way they move. And the only thing which is a problem, and the only one that can ruin the complete balance of the system, as they explain, is the bull. The bull can attack anything. And another thing was, they said the bull should also not appear. And basically, Kun explains that Han Sang-yu, knowing that that coffee machine, he'll make a new one if this one dies. So he'll definitely force it to be there. So what Kun decided to do to take on the bull was to actually throw Anak and Enderosi at him. And we get this hint with with Shibisu having blood coming down his head, and he's saying he doesn't think it was a good idea to send both the princesses because they're fighting each other instead of the bull. And then they come up with a silly little competition between each other. Whichever one of them kills the bull, they get a prize from the other. So if Enderosi kills the bull, then she gets the Black March from Anak. And if Anak beats Enderosi, Enderosi becomes a slave. Now basically it said that they will have a 1v1 against the bull. That is the way that it goes. And they start their little competition. And the first one with 5 minutes is Enderosi. And as Shibisu is about to get eaten by the bull, Enderosi jumps in and she starts attacking the bull, and the bull gets overpowered by her quite easily. Next we have the spear bearers getting ready, holding their positions as they're waiting to attack the barnacle goblins and their wetworms to ensure that they don't accidentally eat Balm. Okay, and that ends 62. We go on to 63. Now, I'm not getting ahead of myself this time because I know what's coming up because I've read the story so many times, and there's a lot more that I'm missing in the details, like the fine little nitty-gritty details between the two people and they're arguing and the insults they pass at each other and the fact that they actually do care a lot. Those things are things that I'm actually leaving out. We next get to see Balm and Rachel, and we see that Balm is feeling strange because he's inside the flow of Shinsu. And we get the sense that Bam has a lot more power than we think. He's actually got the same capabilities as Advanced Scout, sensing the flow of Shinsu above him. So we get into this here and we see everybody's getting ready to take action against the thieves. And Shibisu explains that he thinks it's over sooner than they thought. The bull is almost down, just fighting Endorossi. And he explains just how powerful Endorossi is. If all the regulars on this floor, besides Endorossi and Anak, fought against it, he suspects they wouldn't even be able to stand a chance to fight the bull and win, because the bull has thicker skin, it's far faster, it's far stronger, and that's the way that it would go. If everybody fought together, they most likely would lose. That's if they took it on a straight-on fight. However, Endorossi's strength on her own could take it down, and Anak is most probably not so far off. She could also take it down, but with a little bit more effort, or with igniting the green march at the max. And Shibisu basically explains he can't believe that she actually tied with Renka in a fight, but now he does. So that's what the power of Jihad is one of the things that he says. So Endorossi is about to finish off the bull when the bull pulls out a secret little ploy with its grasp to try and catch it, and she deploys one of her tools. She has a tool which can help her escape from those close quarter situations. It actually pierces the thing which caught her, and then she attacks the bull, putting it down, and then she says she's going to commence its death ceremony. And at this point, Anak actually interferes because she didn't want to lose the Black March, and she trips Endorossi. And then finally, Endorossi goes straight after Anak. They start fighting with the last minute on the line for killing the bull. And the minute ends, and then she says, "It's my turn." Endorossi explains, "You cheated, you're disqualified." And she says, "Who made that rule?" And basically they start arguing again, and they run into a dark place where there is no light. Now Shibisu doesn't know what to do, and now he realizes it might take much longer. We then get to see Ren is hiding out in the exam area. He's been eating and he's waiting to catch them because he's actually controlling the bull. So we move on from this year on to 64. Now he does say they took the bait. It's implied that it is the bull. Next we get Naore with her Shinwei, a small little starfish, and basically Kun and Naore have this little conversation where she explains she's a fish breeder, and she tries to keep it to herself, and she only uses it when it's to her best benefit, to earn points or to earn some extra money. And basically she's doing it to get the bag from Kun. It's the only way they're 100% guaranteed to pass. So she is what you call an enema, and that is something which relates up to the top of the tower where we are right now, where the whole fight is happening with Chomurai. Chomurai is an enema as well. That is why he is so ridiculously overpowered. It's something which these people have in common. They can control creatures to actually get their way. When I reach the final parts, I've actually decided if I don't have a full 10 chapters to go through to reach an end, I will go and break it down as chapter by chapter to the end for the last few episodes when it comes to that point. So yeah, it might take me a few days or a week and a half or 2 weeks, but yeah, that'll be the way that it goes. So Nauri and Kun have this little conversation, and she says she doesn't understand why girls like guys like him. And we then get back to Enderossi and Anak chasing after the bull, and she realizes she's in a very dangerous place. If it were to attack her in here, she'd be in big trouble. And when it attacks this time, she realizes that it's gotten stronger than before, and she can't breathe while she's underwater, and it's almost beating her. At the same time, Anak is rushing around, and she runs into Ren in the middle of nowhere. And Ren basically antagonizes Anak and shows the little pearl in his mouth, saying that his Royal Enforcement Division Unit number 67, his name is Ren, one of her enemies, and he shows the pearl from the necklace his mother had, and he says he killed her mother. And that there really ticks her off, and she decides to attack foolhardy. Now, understanding that it's her mother's killer, it's understanding that she was going to react. So let's get on to 65. There is something which is totally off the standard path. We then get Shibisu looking for her and hunting through with all that he can to find them. And he's speaking with Kun, and he explains that the thieves are on the move, and there's a lot more of them than they thought. It's hard to scout all of the ones hidden underground, and basically explains they have to be careful before they attack. So everything is moving along, and Shibisu falls, and then all of a sudden he says something doesn't feel right. Now we know what happened. It's actually the pressure emanating from Yuri Jahar as she falls in the middle of a test. Now that is an illegal interference. It could cause big problems. At this point, Ren launches one of his enemas to attack Anak, and Anak decides to fight it. She uses Green April against it, and she ignites it and hits it to the side. And then Ren's little pet is back instantly. It didn't actually hurt him, and she's on the back foot, and now she's fighting something that's way too powerful for her to handle. So yeah, the fight goes on, and Anak ends up getting baited by Ren because he's so much more powerful, and he manages to injure her quite severely. We then get a transfer over to Palm and Rachel in the middle of the hunt as they're about to be swallowed, and he says it's like a wave flowing into my body. That's sort of what's this power, basically is asking himself. And we get the end of 65. We go on to 66. Now, although there isn't a lot of information to decode, there's a lot happening in each scene. The smallest little interaction, like when Anak is evaded by Ren's enema, and the enema gets behind her and attacks her with the weapon, there is something to note about the difference between rankers and ranker controlled weapons versus regulars of an unranked class. So yeah, that's something else to think about. Then finally we get Laure busy doing whatever is being told to do, and we see that if you kidnap his blanket and his pillow, he'll do whatever you say. And we see that Laure is a bit mean when he doesn't get his sleep, and he insults Nare, and he tells her that she is an earth pig girl. Then she threatens to tear apart his pillow, and finally she gives him the the pillow back. If I'm correct, they haven't yet given it back to him, but said he'll give it back to him after the test. At this point, the thieves are in motion and the dogs are on their way. And we see that Raak being undecisive because he wants to attack and Quinn is telling him to be patient. And he explains that he got a plan. So he says he's bringing the dogs to them. So he says fine, he'll wait. And then all of a sudden we see Paracule lose his cool and attack because he doesn't want to fire. And basically we get the whole joke where he starts getting called Pickle. And they start screaming as the barnacle goblins start chasing after them. And this is causing a slight distraction. It's buying them a few minutes. And basically Raak grabs Paracule and he starts running. After a few minutes, they finally get out of there. And Paracule is freaking out like crazy. And he starts attacking them because he's much more powerful than the barnacle goblins. And Raak jumps into the middle of the goblins and he starts moving around while attacking and fighting. And that is the end of 66. Now, there is a very big importance to this here. We get the whole hint of the door test all over again. That slight patience that you need and the trust you need in those who are with you is being emphasized again. We then get a recontinuation with Anak on the floor almost dead. We get the green April in her hands and we see that Ren's pet has almost killed her. Then Ren steals the green April from her and we see that they have this conversation. So he explains that he's brought a special guest to kill her and he brings Ender Rossi in. And that's when she realizes that he's been controlling the bull. And he says this whole test is from the start was engineered to kill you. And basically everybody on this floor is helping because you are the enemy of Jahad. So Anak is really unhappy. And when you wake up Ender Rossi haphazardly, she attacks you. So that's how it goes. And she says she got a headache and basically they have this whole conversation while Anak is there on the floor. And Ren basically says he's a member of the Red Unit and the reason he's here is here to kill the lizard and all of this here. So basically it goes over the basics. So he says she can prove that she isn't a traitor. All she has to do is kill the fake. So she explains she'd love to kill the fake, but they need her on the team so they can complete their part. So he says, if you kill her, I'll take the bull with me and I'll leave. That means you don't need the fake anymore, correct? So Ren says, are you going to take revenge? Are you going to side with the girl who wants to take revenge on the family of Jahad? If Jahad found out about this, you're less likely to have a 13-month series in the future. So he hands over the green April and he says, you are worthy of receiving a 13-month weapon, powerful enough to control the destiny of the tower. So finally, Anak approaches her and basically Ren starts getting all giddy because he gets to control princesses and he likes to be manipulative in that way. And Shibisu is panicking at the bottom. He can't climb up the mountains to catch up. And then all of a sudden he feels the intense pressure and he wonders who is there. And he hears, let me ask you for directions. That's the end of 67. So I know that I'm not being very fluent. I'm trying not to get too far ahead and skip ahead with what's going on. So Ender Rossi and Anak are now in that challenge where they're about to go down. So she remembers what happened with the training with Balm and how he explains that she has friends now and she's no longer lonely, and even if she didn't hate it, now at least she has friends. And that in the past she was lonely and now she finally has others with her. So finally she puts the hook from Green April to Anak's chin, and she asks her a question. And the question is, do you want to eat something after the test? So she says, lend me the black march and I'll help you with this. And basically, Ender Rossi and Anak have their little conversation, and Anak is like, I can only afford cheap food, I'm a bit broke. And Ender Rossi closes her eyes and she's like, shall I kill you instead? So they said, but first, before they can do that, they need to get rid of this here. And Anak goes straight into ignition of the green march and she attacks at Ren. At this point, Ender Rossi goes to attack Ren straight up, and then he says, this is self-defense, now we can kill the princesses. We don't understand what's going on at the moment, but later in the tower, when we reach the Neyman station, we find out that the princesses of Jahar were the princesses of Jahar from the local Bia family were trying to actually eliminate the other princesses so that they had complete control. At this point, we see how much more powerful Ren is when he pulls down the two of them and he starts stepping on Anak. So he's basically trying to choke her to death with the leg. And at that point, we get a stone being thrown at Ren. And it keeps getting thrown. He says, show yourself, who are you, who dares interfere? And he says Yuri says she is their older sister, Yuri Jahar. And that's where the chapter ends. Now, I know these chapters aren't very long, but they're very meaningful in their short conversation. These are the points where you need all of the conversation to give you context. So next, Yuri goes in and she looks at it. And she looks at Ren and says, who are you to act like we are close? And basically she gives a scary look. Then we get back out to Rak and the rest of them, and they're all in the fight with the Barnacle goblins. And basically, Parakul thinks he's about to die, and all of a sudden he's up in the air and they're floating. And basically he responds, we're flying. And they realize that Laure is the one who made them float using Shinsu. So they finally return the blanket and pillow back to Laure, and he goes to sleep wherever he can. And we find out what's going on is that underground the dogs have managed to get into the worms, and that's how it goes. We find out how the whole plan was hatched before. Shibisu is actually responsible for this because he found out that earth pigs dig tunnels that damage farmers' fields. So he used Nare's scoutfish to find the tunnels and collapse all the parts that lead to the dolphins, forcing them to come up by the Barnacle goblins instead. So that's all they did, using every member of the team possible to knock out any parts of the structure. And finally it was time to hunt, and they get to fight the goblins. Wherever any one of their worms were interfering with the fishing, they could stop it. At this point, Kun's lighthouse gets invaded by Blueberry, who is one of Yuri's companions, and he is saying that he is going to use the lighthouse to find his companions, and he's a ranker, so he's crazy powerful compared to them. We finally get Laure sleeping, and all of a sudden another member of his family with pink hair from the Eurasia family shows up, and we know that she's accompanied by someone else, and he can't sleep when someone is looking at him, so he gets really uncomfortable. At this point we get Leroro and Quant, and they say there's an intruder in the test, and they ask what's going on, and that is the end of 69. Now 70 is going to bring a lot of things into focus because we're not getting an end. So Quant and Leroro have this argument about there being an intruder, and how it's explained to them because this is happening from the administrator, they're not allowed to interfere. So Blueberry takes over Kun's lighthouse, and he starts controlling it and trying to find his teammates. At this point we find out that there's rankers mixed in with all the regulars here, and we see everything that's going on. So then we get Ren giving his introduction again, number 67, Lopobia Ren. the Royal Enforcement Division Unit 67, Red. And basically, all of that goes through. He's here to kill the fake and retrieve Green April. So Ren says he's going to complete his work, and then she says, "Stop, Ren. A ranker harming a regular during a test, that's against the rules of the tower. Since when did Red earn the right to break the rules of the tower, even if it's their job?" So she said she'll retrieve Green April and Black March, leave before the supervisor notices. Then basically they have this whole argument where he tries to pull rank and he tries to threaten Yuri. And basically Yuri says, "So you want to threaten me with my own name?" So basically at this point Yuri is furious, and she says, "Step away now or I'll kill you." And Ren feels like she's giving goosebumps at this point. He explains that his fish inside his enema bowl are so excited he can't control it, and he releases it, and he releases a massive attack against Yuri, thinking that she's dead. And after a few seconds, he opens his eyes to realize that Yuri is unharmed and all the fish that she released are dead. And then she says, "Alright, now this is self-defense," as she starts attacking at Ren. And that's where number 70 ends. Now we have to understand that her attack towards Ren isn't a full-out assault. She merely flicks her fingers. This just says that Ren isn't the one who actually killed Anak Jahad, because she was also a princess. A princess with a 13-month weapon, so she was crazy powerful. And all of this put together tells you things aren't as simple as they look. There's more hidden behind the ley line of the story. There's subtle little things that are missing from what we need to understand, and we need to understand this in its grandeur to understand where the story is going. We do know what's going to happen next. We know that Yuri isn't allowed to attack Ren. Those things play out in the next part. But overall, all of these things in this little fight have been outlining the relationship between people. The only person who focus hasn't been on in these 10 chapters is Balm, because there's a lot going on between Balm and Rachel that gets exposed in the last episode of the series, basically, where we get the whole rundown of what Rachel truly went through. And this here is a very important part because it gives us the understanding we need to move forward. Because after this year, we get to the next part of the test where Balm ends up getting lost from the team. We find out why they're all in despair, why Rak is so miserable. All of this comes into play within the next part. So I hope that you all did enjoy, and catch you all in the next Climb Up the Tower.
Smells like a safe meal for him. I hit him for a reason. He broke my vase. And maybe I would have to discipline your child if you did yourself. Oh, please. The only thing kids learn from spanking is adults don't have the patience to teach them. Bull hump. What? I don't spank, and my children are very well behaved. Oh, yeah? Your baby's on the roof right now.
canceling flights, so you won't get home for the holidays.
No way I'm getting No way we're taking off on time.
Don't worry, I'm taking this flight back to the Cape.
Jack will make it home this year.
No way, because Jeff flew Northwest. Thanks, Northwest. I need my family. Do you want an excuse to?
No. Well, then cleaning and what's leave again? Now that I'm here, I might as well help you with cleaning and organizing. I just happen to have my Lego maker. We're supposed to start having fun in 15 minutes. What if there's no room for the floor because the big stuff takes up all the space? Where will all the ribbons go? You want to push the cap until you hear them click. Why everything is ready?
Bye.
Only there was small one. Why do you think this one? Okay, but we're spending some time in the cities in the rain. Hey, you had your party, now I have mine. Thanks, baby, my face. Edges, fingers, squidgy, oh my god. How long is your fingers going to be in your party? How much?
Unity! Unity! How nice is you? I'm gonna talk to the Unity. Beta 7, I know it's in there. You are classified as a hostile entity, and Unity doesn't want to talk to you. I know you're gay, Beta 7. I'm an affiliate of you, you little on-deck in-the-wing shoulder to cry on. You are classified as a hostile entity. You're just loving this woman. This isn't gonna shake out like you think, pal. Unity's not into other high fives. Gonna suck you in and use you up, and a month from now, I'm gonna be making out with all of you in a bunch of red wigs. Unity! 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 I know you can hear me. Get out here! Weapon systems engaged. Oh, in your dreams, you have weapon systems. So you're going to a movie? You're 40. All right, Beta shit 7. You just got saved by the bell, bitch. Unity! Can I get a call with Jack?
I am John Jones. Don't take it personally, Sean. He doesn't trust anyone. A wise policy. I am John Jones. Sweetie, we've got to go.
No! No! Why do we always have to do everything according to your timetable?
Actually, it's the movie theater that has the time. So you don't miss the beginning.
No, see, this isn't about the movie theater. This is about you stealing my win. You go, girl! I can't pull that off, can I?
Excuse me, you win?
Yes, my win. How do you expect me to go if you won't let me go?
No way. That's sweetie, we've got
Gosh, Peter, thanks so much for being my best man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. In fact, I got a wedding surprise for you. All right, back it up, guys. I know you have a foot fetish, so I got you the Statue of Liberty's foot.
Oh, thanks, Peter, but Jones all the foot I need now.
What? But wait, Maya, that's the real foot from the Statue of Liberty.
No, I'm okay.
Hey, do you have any idea what I went through to get this? A lot. A real lot. You think this is just, oh, here comes Peter with the Statue of Liberty's foot? No, isn't that